boyfriend, baby.
Excelsior! What up, true believers and horror fiends alike? It's your boy, Ricky Grimes. Welcome to another issue of the Comic Book Horror Show here on Horror Fiend TV. I got my two brothers with me here. First of all, guest starring once again, the man, the myth, the legend, El Jefe. What up, JR? What's good, son?
Hey man, we take a break from DC, we take a break from Marvel, we go right into Image Comics, which we all love, especially when they came out. And yeah, definitely this was one of the marquee franchises for Image Comics.
Yeah. I remember when this first came out. Ooh, I'll get into that a bit later, but what a time it was to be alive. What up, Joe the psychologist? My beer brother, my comic book aficionado. There you go.
What's going on?
What's good, brother? How are you?
I'm looking forward to talking about this one because as I was watching it, I go,
Your
all
pick,
right.
by the way.
So Swamp Thing isn't the only one that, didn't get quite done right. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to Spawn.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. With that being said, let's go. Spawn was released in 1997 from New Line Cinema and Todd McFarlane Entertainment. The film was directed by Mark A.Z. DePay. It stars Michael J. White as Al Simmons, aka Spawn, John Leguizamo as Clown/Violator, and Martin Sheen as Jason Wynn. The character was first introduced back in 1992 from Image Comics. Spawn #1 was released in May of '92, written and illustrated by creator Todd McFarlane. Al Simmons, a highly decorated officer in the U.S. Marine Corps, would eventually be recruited by Central Intelligence Agency and become an assassin commanded by director Jason Wynn. Simmons, whose morality would become increased by the mission, would later be betrayed by Wynn after being killed by former friend and colleague Chapel. After being burned and sent to hell, Simmons would make a deal with the devil Mel Bolger, agreeing to become his Hellspawn in order to one day see his wife Wanda again. Simmons is returned to Earth after false promises and is assigned a guardian named the Violator. Simmons would be renamed Spawn as the internal fight between heaven and hell begins. Let's get down to business right here. Now, we're gonna get started. This film, man, I haven't seen this film, to be honest with you, since it came out in the theater back in 1997, the year I graduated high school. Oh, Ricky Grimes is old. Anyways, yeah, I've seen it once. And this second viewing, that tells you a lot. It took me over 20 years to rewatch this movie. So. Joe, so you brought this up to my attention. You wanted to do this film, and I appreciate it because it gave me a reason to go back and rediscover this film. Malebolgia is the big bad in this film, or in the franchise altogether. He's the one that really creates Spawn. But let's discuss this deal between, the deal with the devil, Malebolgia himself, man. Let's talk about this. What you got to say?
Well, it never goes right when you make a deal with the devil. Al Simmons was basically the top mercenary that they had. But when he was doing his work, he wasn't actually like a mercenary, like hired to kill. He thought he was doing things to help people. But little did he know that when he was working for Jason Wynn, that these jobs Jason was doing, Jason was already working with someone he made a deal with. And during that deal, another deal was struck. The Clown, or Violator, we'll come talk about him later, said, I want Al Simmons because his kill count was high. Mind you, his kill count was high without intention, which is the worst part. He'd always go, you told me there's going to be no civilians in there. There's going to be. And so he did things for the right reasons, being tricked this whole entire time. And so Malebolgia wanted to make him the Spawn, make him the leader of the army. And Jason basically fucked him over. It's kind of weird because that whole scene with the I thought it was Acid at first. Because again, I haven't probably seen this in about It's been about 25 years for me, to be honest with you. From what I understood, he made this deal with him, kind of probably not remembering that he made a deal with him. And Malebolgia put the power of Spawn in him and then sent him back to Earth. And it took the Violator to remind him of things. So
Took 5 years. Yeah.
it took
He
5
was
years.
out for 5 years.
The deal was for him to see Wanda, and here it is. You made a deal with the devil. It's a fucked up deal. So, but it's a fucked up deal that gave you some pretty awesome powers, which, when we go to close it, we'll discuss like some of that stuff. But so, it's like what is it? A double-edged sword.
Yeah.
He made this deal, but he didn't know the price of it. But at the same time, the price gave him these awesome fucking abilities.
It's funny you mentioned Malebolgia because his CGI was horrendous. And
Mhm.
after the fact, I had to look it up because the CGI in this movie ranges, like you said, some good, some in between, but then there's hell, which looks terrible. And the directors and writers, producers, whoever was in charge, they decided that when Malebolgia would speak, it was like he was speaking through hell itself, and that's why his mouth never moved. I'm like,
I didn't even
why?
think about that. That's a
Why
good
is his
point,
mouth
yeah.
not moving? I know the CGI is kind of weak, but it can't be that bad where they can't animate a mouth to move. It looks so bad. Him just talking with his mouth open, and you can see like his tongue. I'm like, this looks terrible. What's going on here? But then their intentions was he was speaking through hell. But the problem is it wasn't done in a way where it conveyed that to the audience.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure that out. I just thought it was just lazy CGI. JR, if you had the opportunity to make a deal with the devil himself, like Al did, if you were in that position, how would you go about that?
Well, first time I'd be like, yo, I don't want to look like a burnt kielbasa because that's what he looked like. And then, funny thing, he actually went through a blip because it took 5 years for him to come back.
Yep. Yeah, it was a blip. Yeah.
It was a
Yep.
blip.
I'll get into this a bit later, but this film predated a lot of shit I hate now. We'll get into that. Go ahead, JR.
No, but it's funny because once again, you did it for a woman, which is a common theme for a lot of these movies in like in the 90s. Because remember, this is the same time we had that whole run of Darkman.
Oh, great film.
Mhm.
Great film, good special effects for a film. So it's kind of pushed back on Joe about the CGI as well. I mean, you have a film like Darkman who had crazy effects and stuff, and they were able to pull that off, being a cheesy film with not as much of a budget as Spawn did too. But the thing too is Spawn had a lot of backing.
Mhm.
You had Todd McFarlane. You had the first Image comic movie. Listen, Wanda's probably gonna move on because I'm ugly and burnt. Give me the powers. I'll lead your army. But before I lead your army, let me go on Earth. Let me get payback on some people. People who bullied me in high school. Make a whole list and shit like that. They'd be like, all right, when I'm done doing my shit, yeah, hell yeah, give me the powers. I'll do it. Why not? You're dead. You're gone already. So what do you got to lose?
JR went dark because I probably would have gone the same route as Spawn. I would have tried to fight the whole not do it, and basically I would have fought the fucking devil the rest of the time.
I would have did
JR
it.
is like, fuck that, I'll lead your
I
army.
would have been like, yo, Martin Sheen, man, why couldn't you just shoot my ass? Or why you had to burn me for something? Clown is, Malebolgia's one of his most loyal servants. He gets sent to Earth to kind of, guide Spawn throughout his his journey here. Joe, I'm gonna throw to you first. Now, this character is a big, short, pudgy, fat guy that's dressed up as a clown, right? John Leguizamo, bro, unrecognizable. Only in his performance you could tell a bit. Great makeup. By the way, K&B did the makeup to this movie, top tier. But going back to my question to you, the clown, who is also that's the Violator's alter ego. What did you think about this character?
Well, like you said, John did an awesome job. And if I remember this right, I should have looked it up. But if I remember this right, I think that when he did this on his knees. Like they did something
They
to
had him,
be able.
they had him, kind of
Yeah.
squint down and kneel.
Well,
right?
no, I'm just he literally would sometimes walked on his
Oh,
knees,
yeah.
and I think they taped or did something to his legs, which gave that funny walk because
Fun fact, the scene where he picks up the pizza with the worms on them, those were real wax worms, and he actually ate them. And as soon as they hit cut, he hurled.
Yeah, I would have. But yeah, no. So for because I don't remember all the comics. Unfortunately, the one that does know the comics couldn't join us tonight.
Yeah, I have most of the first. I got like the first 60 to 70 issues.
So he was number one for the devil. And now Spawn was going to be number one for the devil. So
Yes,
it was this battle
exactly.
for the number one spot. Like he had like a Freddy Krueger vibe, with the jokes and stuff. Once you look at the face, you can actually see it's him.
Yeah.
But he got so into that performance. He did a great job.
He killed it.
I didn't hate the graphics on the Violator because it looked like it did in the comic books.
That's one redeeming thing I would say.
Yeah.
The CGI was still a little shaky, but at least they kept them true to the comic page.
You knew where the budget went on the scenes and shots that they wanted.
Originally, this film was written as more of a darker film, more character based and character driven with Al and the forces between heaven and hell. But later on, they said, no, we needed to make it more bombastic, add more action. And that's when all that bad CGI came in with the hell and shit like that.
After a little while, the constant jokes, which happens in some of the Marvel movies, like, it's like, okay, it's a little too much now. Like, tone down the jokes. That's
why?
Only little. Good.
And this is just me. I didn't read this. This is my opinion. I think it's to compensate for the lack of an R rating. Because instead of saying fuck and shit and damn you, the dialogue was horrendous.
Bro. Oh, yeah, no.
Some of it was so bad that it was funny. Like, in the comics, Spawn never looked at his armor and was like, hell yeah.
Oh, I know. It was like the reaction.
Oh, my God. I mean, the comic is super violent, pervasive language, and the movie just to compensate for the lack of like dark, they added light to it, which was a mistake.
Yeah, because like I said,
not Spawn.
After a while, it got old.
Yeah. JR, so as far as the clown goes, right? And did you like the transition like between the clown character and the Violator character?
In the comics, they did have that love-hate relationship, but they were constantly fighting. They were always fighting. That was the whole point. Violator was so pissed off that this is the guy who's replacing him.
Thank you. Joe mentioned it before. Yeah. That's key to clowns. His whole MO. Yeah. That's what drives him.
Yeah, and it's just like the fact that they try to make it too friendly over the whole desire that Violator had was to take him out as much as he can. And the thing is, like, John Leguizamo, he actually said this was one of the best performances, and after this movie, he actually got rave reviews because of everything he had to do to pull this character off. And let's be honest, out of all the characters in the movie, he was the most interesting, which is that just tells you that where you have John Leguizamo's character more interesting than the actual main character in the film.
Yep, and from comic page to film screen, identical. I mean, makeup, the hair. One thing they did not shy from is to keep it comic accurate. They were not embarrassed to keep him looking the way he is. If this movie was to be released now, guarantee Spawn will not look like Spawn. He'll look
like, it's gonna be so confusing.
Yeah, they'll try to make a suit. All right, let's make a suit, be fitted for today's world, Nah, fuck all that. And same thing with clowns. They'll change them up. They'll make them look like Pennywise or something.
Yeah, it'll be scarier.
His appearance was perfect, I thought. And it's just one of those things where I feel like if they would have just focused the film more on them two, the struggle between them two, and I think the problem by doing that though is they know. I mean, I'm not trying to knock this dude on Michael J. His character as Spawn, but
hey,
when everybody, Michael J. White, everybody watches that film. They remember him, but they really remember John Leguizamo's portrayal of the Violator.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's get into it, fellas. I'm gonna start with Joe.
So I saw this when it came out, and I've been with my husband Adam now for 21 years. And I don't recall in the time I've been together with him that I've seen it. So I moved down here in 98. So there must have been like one more time in between 98 and 2003
That's
that I
one
saw
more
the
time
movie.
than me. I've only seen this 2 times.
Well, and again,
And
because
that was just it was one time until just a couple of days ago.
well, and it was it's like I still, sometimes you see a movie and you're like, oh God, this was not great,
Yeah.
and then
So
you watch it again. But I'm not gonna lie. In '97, I didn't hate the movie.
I did.
Unfortunately, well, I didn't. Like
There's
I
a
saw
reason
what they
why I've
were
never seen
putting,
it again.
but I saw what they were putting in the comics. There's certain parts that were not great,
Listen, I'm a
and
big.
now,
I love the Spawn comics. Like I said, I got most of the entire first run. And when this came out, I remember being so disappointed. And this is a time where I was watching trailers and reading everything about it. But let's get into it, man. 1997, and we're in 2023, man. We watched it back. We did Totally Killer, which was an 80s homage.
Mm.
This film is totally 90s.
oh yeah,
Does it hold up, brother? Does it hold up?
does it hold up? It does have some good parts. If you're a comic book fan, you knew where they put their money on to recreate scenes out of the comic book. And there's a couple scenes in there that I clearly recall seeing in the comic book, but then some of the other parts not so much. And I was so happy to finally see another comic book reference, not do it the right way.
Are you saying the scene where they jumped into the fire pit to go into hell? That wasn't in the comics.
No, I'm talking about just
I
like the
know, I'm
way.
fucking with you.
Well, no, I mean like where they showed Spawn grabbing all the guns and
Yeah.
the firefight, and I
Yeah.
sat there and I'm in my head going,
They got
all
some
right,
of the visuals right, like with Spawn when he first learned how to use his cape properly.
cape.
The silhouette
Yeah.
against like the moonlight against the whole. They got the whole city, and you got him on the ledge up atop of the actual building, and that silhouette with his cape flowing in the wind.
That was in the comic books.
Awesome, yeah,
Like
that
I
was
said,
good.
I watched this last night with one of my coworkers. I'm like, I have to review this. I'm so behind. And do you mind? He's like, I haven't seen this movie in a while. I'll watch it with you. He's like, wow. I'm like, I know, right? Isn't it so bad? But what killed me was the part when Spawn goes and gets all the guns and does a firefight. And then I said, oh, okay, good. Somebody else who messed up a comic book character, like Swamp Thing, original Swamp Thing, they messed it up. And they did the same thing with this one because, the firefight, like I thought was weird. But then it kind of led into the fact that he had to be taught how the outfit worked.
Mm-hmm, that makes sense.
But I still it was weird for them to have done that. It's not how I remember the character. I've never remembered the character all of a sudden fucking coming in like the Punisher, in a cape. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't done that way. I'm looking forward to the remake. I'm still a little
If it
sus.
ever comes out.
I'm a little
I'm
on the
holding
fact
out
that
on it,
it's
man.
well, I mean, they went with Jamie Foxx for Al Simmons.
That's fine.
I mean, he's not a bad actor. Listen, I like some of his stuff.
He's an Oscar winner, bro. What are you talking about?
I get that, but I'm 51 years old myself, so Al Simmons is not in his 50s.
Oh, good call. That's good.
Al Simmons is younger.
Good
So
show.
you're taking a character and making them older. And I'm saying this as an older person, all right? I do not want to see, the comic book characters who are supposed to be in their 30s being played I'm trying to think of a Spanish Puerto Rican superheroes who say, but
we don't have any, brother.
We have one.
We have Miles, but
it's funny because I was thinking Vibe from the Justice League. That's how bad of a Spanish reference we
there
have.
are no Puerto Ricans in comics.
There is no Puerto Ricans.
Unless they're mixed. That's the only way they're Puerto Rican.
Yeah. So Todd just came off of doing Spider-Man. And there was this whole exodus of all these artists from Marvel who created Image Comics. Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee,
Portacio,
Todd McFarlane, Walsh Portacio, all these people left
Eric
to
Larson,
create
yeah.
Eric Larson to create their own. They wanted their own voice on things.
They want a creator owns comics. They want to own their own properties. And
so I wonder how Todd feels looking back now and watching this movie. So the movie went from Swamp Thing when they showed him with the gun to once Cagliostro showed him how to use his powers, that he can control his suit a certain way, that the movie did get cool. So if you go in as a first time watcher on this, again, unfortunately, we are now in the times that most movies are going to get compared to a Marvel movie. You have to remember there's a lot of money that went behind those Marvel movies, so it's not going to be the same thing. You're going to be slightly let down. But some stuff still was pretty cool. It just doesn't hold up. It didn't hold up the same way Swamp Thing doesn't hold up.
JR, so let me ask you this, and you're the perfect person to ask this, right? Now, this film obviously asks, does it hold up? But more importantly, if you were in charge of taking the Spawn comic and bringing it to film, not now, but in '97, how would you approach that?
See, the thing with that film is it felt rushed. And now the karma of the film is a year later, Marvel drops Blade. Exactly a year later. So
don't forget, within the same year though, the HBO series starring Keith David as fucking Spawn. That was the same year.
It's funny
like
that
night and day. Like, how the fuck is that completely R-rated?
Yeah.
But that the motion picture, they went completely PG, thinking it was catered towards kids. Spawn is not catered towards kids. What are they doing out? Whatever.
Jared, when you brought up Blade, it's funny because when all of a sudden the electronic music kicked in, I'm like, this
the
is
music
Blade.
was so 90s.
And then so I'm glad that you now told me that actually this came out before it, because I sat there, I'm like, oh no, they completely ripped off Blade and put like the dance track type of music to get you elevated. So no, I guess it was the other way around. Thank you for clarifying that one.
This is the problem with the film is it felt rushed.
Totally.
So they could have focused. Remember at those times, people didn't mind sitting in through long movies because people actually loved going to the movies.
Yeah, but long movies back then were 2 hours.
But you could
until Titanic, that was 3 hours.
You could have pulled off a 2-hour film where you could spend the first half an hour showing Al Simmons go completely kill count, give you the whole backstory of the way he was, instead of shortening it up real quick. Because the Wynn character, you got Martin Sheen playing Wynn, and let me tell you, that was one of the worst roles I ever seen him play.
My God, it was so weird to watch him as a bad guy. He did not do well.
No, it was bad. It was bad.
With like black hair.
Oh, it was so like, and I like
this
him.
is like,
but to be fair, he looked a lot like Jason Wynn from the comics. So.
He did.
He looked a lot like them, but you could tell that he was restrained in the character itself.
That's like Dennis Hopper in Land of the Dead, just hamming it up. Bro.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you would have made it a more serious, like first 30 minutes, and then, why skip the whole part where he's asking for the deal? You could have showed him going through the kills and then coming home and see how he is with his family, because that would have gave you a deeper look into the character. How is he after he just? How is he after he just goes, kills a couple people and comes home? Because he always wanted to come home. That was his big thing. I always wanted to be with my family. If you would have did that and then, show the betrayal, at least give us a glimpse of when he's about to make the deal. You don't have to go through the whole thing of showing the deal. Get to the point where we think he makes a deal, and then you jump into the 5 years where he Violator basically waits for him. And then they could have took the whole relationship between the Violator and him. The problem with the film is that for us who read the comics, for us who knew the character, we didn't feel connected to the character. And this is what a lot of these superhero films do. Think about the films that we love, the characters we love, we defend the most. They could be a bad movie, but we'll still defend it because we read the comic books, because we love the character. But even like the scenes with, think about the coolest scene that you show, like the Cape at his best, is when he goes into that ball and he's coming down and it's totally spread out. We could have had more of that.
Yeah, you
could have went totally dark with it. Focus on that character between him and Violator, the relationship. When is the afterthought? And to be honest, I haven't watched this film in I don't even know how long. But I always pass over it every time I see it.
But brother, how stupid! Now that we're on Win, this motherfucker has the genius. The Violator or Clown. He puts this into fruition. He manipulates everyone into putting a fucking detonator in this guy's heart.
Fucking heart.
So if he gets killed,
Easily.
all this virus is spread out, right? But what if he dies naturally? Then the whole world is gonna die. Like, what is the idiots agreeing to? That was the most nonsensical fucking piece of plot I've ever seen.
And then you do the final scene in a freaking living room. I mean, seriously? You got Spawn.
That's when I mentioned the fireplace. It jumped into the fire.
Yeah, he lives in the alleyways. Do it in the alleyways.
Yeah, but they didn't. The thing with this movie is they didn't spend that much time with him in the alleys with all the homeless people. That was a big part of Spawn. That's when he really connected back to humanity.
Just real quick, in the alleyway, the little boy that I can't remember.
Zach?
All right, so Zach was the little boy in Pet Sematary.
All right, fellas, let's get to the nitty gritty and let's start wrapping this up. Now, again, the score is 1 through 4. Joe, please do us the honors and explain the rating system.
All right, so we follow the rating system based on the mutant levels. 1 is epsilon, 2 is beta, 3 is alpha, and 4 is omega. So I'll go ahead and go first on this one. This might have been an epsilon for me had it not been for, good job, John. John Leguizamo is the saving grace in this movie. If you didn't have his character, the way that he acted in the role, and this was somebody who acted in a role, thinking that there's going to be a sequel for this, and I'm going to be another major villain in this. So he put his job on the line, did it, performed it. So this for me would be a beta, and it's a beta only because of John Leguizamo.
JR?
So this is an epsilon for me.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why. Because think about this. When this movie came out, we collected comics still at this time. We were massive fans of Image. I love Jim Lee.
Bro.
Jim Lee was my favorite artist.
I bought Youngblood #1, the very first Image comics during the Ronnie King riots, bro. I risked my life to go to the mall and get that fucking comic.
No, but think of this. If they would have went all in on this film, this was the perfect time for Image to set its foothold. And they had interesting characters at the time people liked reading. I mean, Jim Lee, I love the Pitt character. Pitt is a freaking horror film. It's a horror comic.
That was Dale Neon, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Neon? Is it Neon? He did Hulk, essentially, right?
Yeah.
This is the motherfucker that put one book out every 5 months, right?
Yeah, but it was. It
was a good book, though. It was based in Connecticut, by the way. It was based in Connecticut.
But I'm saying we would be talking about Image Comics before Marvel even went.
Yeah, because Marvel, you're right. Marvel was in the dumps at that time.
They were in the dumpster.
Yep. They lost all their creators.
God, they would have.
Everybody went to Image
because the movie bombed, and it did bomb. It was technically bombed.
Yeah,
during this time
they never went with a sequel.
People shut down, and then a couple years later, Image started going down a bit, but. This doesn't hold.
I think Spawn as a franchise, comic book especially, peaked when this film came out because
Spawn for me is better. If there was to bring it back as a movie, I think there's only one person who could pull this shit off, and he's basically an exile from DC. So I would hit up Snyder, but listen, there's this character Spawn.
Throw those Snyder. Now for me, I'm a beta on this one. I have to rewatching it because this again. I love the intro to this. It's so 90s, and I'm not a 90s guy, but this one film to depict the 90s perfectly. The zeitgeist lives in this fucking film with the 90s. I love the intro, and when he first saw Al Simmons with the actual. He's got the tactical outfit, he's got the mask on, he's got the heavy weaponry, he's the assassin. The way that intro is shot is like a George Romero film. Quick cuts, quick editing, like the sound effect things are getting put together. It's the camera's constantly moving. It's so frantic. He gets to his spot, you got the plane, you got the binoculars zooming in. I'm like, wow, I don't remember this movie being this kick-ass. This looks fucking great. I'm like, wow. But then of course, once the intro's over, and I did like the title screen again, very 90s. But again,
Yeah.
it's a sign of the times. Not bad. You know, it had Marilyn Manson was in the soundtrack somewhere in there. I think at the end of the film as well. I liked all of that stuff. But then once you got into the storytelling part of it, that's when it kind of falls apart. And the movie, I give it credit for being comic accurate. Spawn and the Violator, Clown. Bolgia looked like him, but it was terrible. But it did still look like him. But what this film pisses me off because I remember when I first saw this. When Spawn goes away for them 5 years, his best friend Terry hooks up with Wanda. Now in the comics, Terry is African American. When I went to the movie, I saw D.B. Sweeney playing Terry. And this is before now, where everyone's race changing now, or you know, not you know what I mean. Not they're switching the nationalities around now, right? It wasn't like that back then. So I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's supposed to be black. Why is he a white dude all of a sudden? What the fuck? Everything else is so accurate except for that. And then I had to do research recently. Apparently, they did not want people to feel that this film was only marketed towards African Americans. How stupid is that? Like, Get Out isn't successful, or Us?
Again, those are different times.
At different times. Again, that's my point.
Again,
that's my point. But again, the 80s were wild, but the 90s, the Jerry Springer era, was fucking bonkers, bro.
I love Jerry Springer.
So to say shit like that out in like in an open forum, like, we didn't want people to think it was an African American forced film.
And it should have been.
It should have been.
It should have been. It should have been. It should
Yes.
have been. It should have been
Race
something that
should not matter.
marketed-
Race should not matter.
Well, it didn't, but you still you had a strong black character, so they didn't want to just focus on that. Those film goers, they should have leaned in on that.
Yeah, and then
it should have leaned in, because this is a urban type of horror comic movie.
yeah.
It
just makes no sense because this is Todd McFarlane's vision. Al Simmons and Terry are both people in Todd McFarlane's life. He knows these people in real life. Wanda that's that name he got from his wife. His wife is named Wanda. So it's not black and white, nothing like that. It's the point. The fact that we didn't want this movie to feel like it was catered towards one race over the other, it's fucking ridiculous. But nonetheless, one thing I do got a bone to pick. This is Spawn. And I always pick at this with Marvel. This guy never wore his fucking mask. When I started the second time, I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yes.
What's going on? And this predates all these movies. Yeah. This motherfucker predated race swapping and fucking everyone not this for whatever reason. The heroes don't wear their masks. The guy's wearing a fucking latex mask over his fucking face. You really gotta show the actor? What the fuck? And the thing is, his costume looks so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they made it more organic. This movie, in my opinion, felt more like The Guyver than Spawn.
Ooh.
Because I read the comics. I never saw his fucking cape turn into a fucking tank or that one
oh my god
item when he took out the bus or whatever that was.
Oh my god, yeah.
He never did shit like that. I'm like, come on, what's going on here? Like, they took a few liberties with that. But again, all you saw was a Spawn costume with no mask, just a burnt face. Bro, you look way better with a mask. What are you doing? And Michael Jai White wasn't no star. What are you doing? Why can't he wear a mask? Spawn always had the mask on.
There was another thing they dropped the ball on when you read the comic books. There was always a timer and a ticker. Every time he used his powers,
they mentioned it. They mentioned that in the film.
It was such
a quick blurb.
They would have had it every time he used his powers.
Thank you for mentioning that also, because it was mentioned as a forethought, like literally, like, hey, if you use it, but. Again, in the comics, you knew that he was aware of the more that he uses powers.
Cagliostro had mentioned that. He said, the more you use your power, you drain your soul or whatever the term you use, and then you die, essentially. What my man is saying was when he was in Marvel, he was like, nah, I want my own shit. I want to own my own shit. I'm out. Jim's out. Rouse is out.
All's out.
Eric's out. Everybody's out of here. Rob's gone.
Liefeld is just a whole other story. Though.
Yeah, so we're gonna do our own shit. So yeah, grab the balls, grab Horror Fiend TV YouTube. Guys, thank you for joining us on another episode / issue of the Comic Book Horror Show. Thank you for GR for coming on. Really do appreciate it, my brother. And Joe, of course, always thank you for everything you do. With that being said, if you like this film, it's you know what? It has a certain charm to it. It's not terrible. It's not like the bottom of the barrel, but because the character is so like awesome and visually striking, and that world is so rich that we expected more out of it. There's a reason why I saw it in the theater once and never went back until a couple days ago. And upon seeing it the second time,
it's not
now
horrible.
full disclosure, I smoked a bowl before I seen it again, and whoa boy, it's important. It makes a world of a difference.
It does.
So maybe that's why I gave it a beta, not an epsilon. But with that being said, I'm Ricky Grimes, JR, and Joe, the psychologist, my co-host. Come back for the next one. Stay good, stay happy, stay safe. Read comics, watch horror movies, stay scared.
We are out.